Welcome to Woven Soft Edges, Deep Roots, a space where bodies, culture, and transformation meet. I'm Sarah, a body worker, a tender of community care, and inviting you into conversations that nourish and ground. If you love exploring the intersections of healing, creativity, and belonging, consider supporting this work on Patreon. Your generosity helps sustain the quiet labor of community care and keeps these conversations flowing. You can also connect with me on Instagram and TikTok. Links are available in the show notes. Now, let's dive in. Hello! We're here today. And I'm Sarah Newberry, and I am a barefoot massage therapist, a continuing education provider, and a somatic mind body coach. And we're here today with my lovely friend, Rachel Wolff. Tell me about you.
I am a massage therapist, licensed body worker since 2008, living in San Antonio, Texas. I'm the founder of Mama Bear Massage and the Mama Bear Massage Method. Also fully into somatics and just having as embodied as an experience possible and helping my clients have an embodied experience and kind of coaching and guiding them through what that means, how to stay connected with everything going on internally. Um, yeah, I hope I summarized everything I do. I do a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we both have been in the healing field of massage therapy for a long time. So, I think as both of us are lovers of learning, we do a lot of things, but they're all kind of like connected and interconnected.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
That's what I love about our industry so much too. And I was so excited when you wanted to do this limited series together because I could literally talk about our industry all day, you know. We went to lunch back in April when I was visiting St. Louis, and we just kind of, as we always do, like got into these wonderful, rich conversations, and we were just like, we want to have more of these, and let's record it.
Yeah.
Um, because yeah, this industry is so wide and there's so much room to explore and play and make lateral moves, pivot,
Mhm.
and otherwise I don't know if I would have made it this long if I was only allowed this role or this role, but I've done a lot and you have too, and
Yeah,
it's
and I mean, obviously
wonderful.
we have a scope of practice we have to, stay within. And I feel like many of us who have been in it for as long as we have start to realize that massage from our core education is not nearly enough, right? Like Swedish massage is just not enough.
No, most massage schools, in my experience, and I've opened two massage schools since being in San Antonio. I plan to open a school someday of my own as soon as I can get that SBA 7A loan. What? So, the world of massage schools is a world that I personally really want to be a part of because I can see that a lot of effective change is necessary in that world. The way that a lot of massage schools currently operate is just as a business. A lot of the time, it's either like these small mom and pop schools with a ton of heart, but maybe organizationally not so organized. There's other dysfunction that happens internally, and it's all understandable, but those places can be a bit of a shit show. Although, like I said, like a lot of the time you see a beautiful intention there. There's just a lot of admin work and things when you're running a school. And so you see mom and pop kind of schools just struggling. And then the larger schools that are often part of like national chains or more regional chains, but they're like career training institutions that have multiple disciplines, like, they're money makers. So
Mhm.
who's writing the curriculum for those schools, and those programs? They're often being written by somebody who's at the higher up, uh, executive or admin level, the corporate level, and they don't have a background in massage therapy at all. They have no idea. They're literally just performing a task where they're trying to create a curriculum that checks all the boxes of what that state requirement is. and it's very plug and play. It's not a lot of heart. And yeah, so that's the beginning for us.
Yeah, you know, as I started in this career, I really noticed that there was a lot of issues, right? I mean, we could talk all day about the problems within massage therapy, but and I'm not talking about the surface level things like what you're charging and it's not enough or people not making enough money or like the sexualization of massage. I'm not talking about those kinds of things. I'm talking about like how do some people come out of this specific school being very well informed and the other people coming out of a different school being very not informed at all, right? And those are like
100%.
core problems.
Yeah.
And all those other surface things could be kind of better or better fixed if like the core issues were addressed or at least like managed or standardized or something. And I realized really early on that I kept coming back to the core education was a lot of the issues. A lot of the issues came because there wasn't a standard within core education. So where I am, there's maybe, I think right now there's like 4 schools here and they don't have a whole lot of students, right? Right before COVID was like 2019, I was kind of doing some data research in my area and they were only producing like 82 graduates a year. Yeah.
Wait, who?
In my city, they're like in metro.
Across those four schools,
Yeah.
82
Yeah.
a
Yes.
year.
A year.
Ooh.
I know. And I think, and I'm sure it's different now, right? But this is at that time. The average, like there's one school, the average cohort has like 6 students in it.
Yeah. I
Think
was
of that.
experiencing similar low numbers here, but the last school that I opened a campus for, and my office was at the main campus. I was kind of all over the place, zipping between Thousand Oaks and the main campus here. Um, sorry, where did I lost that train of thought. Oh yeah, they push numbers like they wanted 40 per class.
Mhm,
The
mhm.
CEO is a little vakakta, but she was like pushing those numbers and she hired somebody who was very goal driven. And so they were getting big enrollments. But then again, that's another problem, in my
Right.
opinion.
It becomes a different problem. Yeah. 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 So 82 graduates a year is not enough to keep up with the demand of
Yeah.
people seeking massage therapy. Now, that seems like maybe that's a good problem to have, but when you look at the schools and their curriculum, there's problems all over the place, like really big problems all over the place. And
Yeah.
and I see that as a continuing education provider because when you come to my class, it's not just you're learning this one thing. We're also having like a deep dive into what it is to be a massage therapist, and I'm learning a lot about what people are learning and what schools are teaching, not only in my area, but across the country, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what is the benefit to becoming a provider, right? A CE provider, because you really get your kind of hands in the mix of like what the pulse is in the
Yeah. You can check the pulse,
yeah,
right? You
yeah.
can ask a group.
Yeah, you're not kind of like insulated in your own just massage treatment room. You really get to see what's going on out there. And I think that was really where I was like, oh man, there's some big core problems. I think it was when did I teach this class? Like 20, it was before COVID. You know that before the COVID time.
Yeah, BC, right?
Yeah, 2018 or something. And there
Ooh, so long ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know. There was a school teaching in their business class to take out yellow page ads for marketing. And I was like, what? In what age are we doing this? Does the phone even
Ooh.
exist anymore? And that was just like one example of
Leaving
marketing.
all that money on the table there with those
Right,
leads coming
right,
from the yellow pages. My God.
right. And I
Yeah.
also feel like I don't see schools. I mean, now I'm going to say this, and there's going to be a school watching this that's like, we do this. And of course, but I know some schools around here that are not keeping up with science and like what we're
Yeah.
learning about, even the laws of bodies and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
we have this accrediting board that's supposed to be, keeping us all kosher, like
Yeah.
up to code.
Copacetic or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, and I just I've been a part of that accrediting process, and it's not what we want it to be.
So this could be a really good tie-in to our topic of the day, which is trauma-informed care. Because and I've written the curriculum for the schools that I've opened, and I've written the curriculum for the school that I want to open someday. And by the way, my friend Savannah, who would be my future business partner, she and I have tossed around names. We've thought about like MMA, like Modern Massage Academy, but then I'm like, okay, MMA, people Google it and they're getting like jujitsu.
Right.
But, but anyway, modern massage and thinking about keeping it pushing with all the science and evidence-based research and things. Because think about the last decade in terms of somatic therapies and even just the fascial understanding that we have. So all of this stuff is like just starting to kind of emerge. We've got to keep it pushing and relevant. But the reason I want to tie it into trauma informed, as you design the sequencing in massage school, you introduce them to the fundamentals and things like Swedish, and then you work them into I'm not titrating. You titrate in more advanced techniques as you go through the curriculum. And then, of course, depending on the state, here in Texas, I think students have to have completed 120 hours, something like that, a certain number of um, the non-hands-on hours, right? The theory hours, classroom learning or hybrid learning. But classroom, once you get to that point, you can legally start seeing clients in clinic. So it's like, okay, because that's how schools also make money. But from a non-business standpoint, from a instructor standpoint, I want my students to get their hands on bodies as soon as they have certain levels of education in certain areas. Like I want them to have health and hygiene, right? They've got to have certain things. But as soon as those things are met, get your butt in clinic and start getting hands on bodies.
Hmm.
Um, and so trauma informed care, if I could include trauma informed care to a part of the curriculum, I really truly believe, and I know I've said this before on a previous episode, what's going to change the future of our industry is how aware future LMTs are in terms of our clients' nervous system needs and how to show up in practice, how to continue to be a good leader in those places and spaces, but in a way like I'm just gonna add, I can't count how many times I've gone to see a massage therapist, let's just say at, Massage Heights or Massage Envy or Massage Lux or one of these places, and little things like scooting the stool around or closing the cabbie door kind of loudly, or when you enter the room to begin the session and you're the client on the table and you hear the therapist say, okay, like thinking out loud. Pet peeves all around because there's such a lack of attunement in all of these little things. And I always say when I'm training or teaching a new group, I'm like, look, even if you haven't read the books and you don't know, you don't have the knowledge, here's what you need to know. Just regard these clients with an extra level of sensitivity to sensory stimuli and sound and light. If you could only pick two, pick sound and light stimuli. So just keep things extra um, dialed down
Hmm.
because they already have so much happening. We don't need to add to that, right? The body and the mind can only handle so much at a time. And we want to be very sensitive to these levels of how much are they already or have they already taken on.
Hmm.
I'm going to pause there.
Yeah, okay, so, in my own like trauma healing, I started in my own traumatic life trying to understand trauma healing, right? Then as you do as a massage therapist, you start to see how like all of that applies to massage, or how does massage apply to everything in life? And I started to realize that there was not enough trauma-informed understanding in the massage world. And that is insane because we invite people in our space to be in one of the most vulnerable places maybe that they will ever be. Okay.
100%.
And
With a stranger. Yeah.
yeah, and I guess I do actually mean that to sound very serious, because it's very serious. And, and I think that, in massage school, we're sort of just like, I guess, in doctor school and law school or whatever, it's like you get desensitized to what you're doing. And I never, even after all these years, ever want to forget that I am a stranger inviting another stranger to get completely undressed underneath nothing but a thin sheet, maybe a blanket. And I'm going to touch their body in a way that they don't know about yet, you know?
Right.
And
Right.
so one thing I always say, so because of this, I then created a CE class around nervous system understanding and trauma informed sensitive care for clinical settings. And in this class, um, I drive home the point that good intentions are not enough. Good intentions are not enough. I know so many people go to massage school because they want to help people. That's noble. Absolutely. Rock on,
Yeah.
right?
And you have to have that.
Absolutely. Or you're gonna burn out, crash and burn, right? And that intention is not enough. Like, you do have to understand sensitivities and be prepared to, like, work with those sensitivities when they arise, like in the moment, but also creating an environment and a space for people who are going to be vulnerable to completely relax. That right there is how massage therapy is effective. You can learn all the techniques you want, you can use all the tools that you want to, but if you are not creating a safe space, your massage is not effective, period.
This is also why I wanted to talk about, authenticity and boundaries and communication before we delved into all this, because so much of this work as the provider is internal boundary management. And even if your communication is great and wonderful and da da da, very skilled and attuned, all the things, people in pain have fewer boundaries. They're pushed to their limits. They are maxed out. They are at their bandwidth and beyond. The story I shared about the very postpartum mama who was just a hot mess. And I say this with all the empathy and kindness and love. She was having a really hard time and really struggling. Um, and that's very common. And I'm speaking about the perinatal space, but also general population. Working with people in pain or with stress or whatever they're carrying, I'm going to use the word pain, um, requires even more robust boundaries and expectations for you as the provider. I think that's also what leads to a lot of burnout with younger therapists is just the emotional exhaustion of having the intent to help, and then something happens and there's a lack of good boundary management there. And so they take that home. So we really have to reinforce internally the things that we do so that when we show up, we can be fully present and we're not taking any of this in to ourself.
Mhm.
You mentioned something, by the way, Sarah, that I want to mention while we're recording that I think is so interesting, that you're also a barefoot massage provider and instructor, but that there's a shift that you feel when you work with clients using your feet as your main tools versus your hands as your main tools. There's all these cool things to kind of examine and think about how am I taking this on and what boundaries do I need to protect my A?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that it's important to remember, kind of like skipping backwards a bit, so many people, I mean, I think it was AMTA did a study in 2019 that 90% of the general public saw massage therapy as an effective tool for pain relief. So people in pain will likely turn to massage therapy for relief. And to your point, when people are in pain, their capacity is altered. And, I go into the definition of capacity, but if you think about like a vessel and what do we have? What can we put in there? That's capacity, right? And I'm sure we all know that feeling of like, I cannot take any more of whatever. If you're a parent, it's sometimes like screaming in the house or whatever, or like, I can't take any more no-shows, or I can't take it. That's you're at capacity, you can't take anymore. And I think that people who are in pain or hurting or stressed out, it's they're sort of like looking for relief, right? They're looking everywhere they can. Hopefully they come to us before they're at that point. But oftentimes I begin a relationship with my client when they're struggling with something.
Yeah, they come in when it's urgent.
Right. I mean, as people, both of us who work with pregnancy, I'd love for someone to find out they're pregnant at like 6 or 8 weeks and come in and not at 38 weeks. But, it happens more that they come in at 38 weeks and they're like, I'm due. Can you get me in? And I'm like, I'm 6 weeks booked out. Um, but
Yeah.
But the point being is that like we have to be able to be sensitive to those things. And again, you can learn all of the techniques that deal with fibromyalgia or medical massage or piriformis syndrome or whatever. But if you're not creating the environment that allows them to feel safe being vulnerable, and most importantly, safe to request something else, their pain's probably not going to go away.
Um,
I had a,
agree. And oh, sorry, did you want to add?
oh, no, go ahead.
Well, I was thinking back to something you had said, I think in a previous episode, where we were talking about um, when a client, or if and when a client comes in and they're not ready for touch. Like my client who was dealing with the floods here in Texas and was in mourning, she was grieving. She'd probably been crying in the car. She came in still visibly upset and very hyper aroused state. And I know you've had similar cases, right? And we just kind of have to intuitively and through our experience and our empathy, just kind of navigate, okay, what do we do in real time? How do I figure this out? And the good default is to just be present, give them the space. If they're discharging, which by the way, if you're listening, that's a term, discharging. Some clients discharge their emotional or psychological or somatic stress physically. So some clients will talk a lot on the table as a form of discharging. So that's not something we want to shush or suppress, right? If we recognize it as discharging. Now that's different from maybe other kinds of talking, but again, discharging, sweating, body heat, there's all these different ways that our body tries to release fidgeting, moving around a lot. If you have a client that's a wiggle worm, don't try to correct them, please. Just go with it. If you have a suspicion, this is a trauma-informed way to kind of work with all these different iterations of that pain trying to leave the body.
Mm,
It's trying to discharge itself. So don't control it, flow with it,
mhm,
right? Help it get out. And the best way for you to help it get out is to hold steady, hold
mhm.
still. You're not doing it with your words. You're not even doing it with your beautiful techniques. You're doing it with the stillness in between all of that. I think that's my take on it.
Yep, I absolutely agree. In fact, I encourage the first time I work with somebody, I'm always like, if you feel the need to fidget, I want you to fidget.
Yeah, give them an open invitation. Thank
Mm,
you for, I do the same with my prenatals, especially if they're not only pregnant, but a first time massage client, because you get a lot of that. So it's like they're a double special population. I make sure to buffer to give me a little bit more time to explain like how to get on and off the table. I have a little transitional move utilizing child's pose or tabletop to kind of, so I kind of walk them through the choreography and explain things. And that's one of the open invites too, is like, look, there's two parts to this equation. Part A is just listen to your body and give it what it needs. Part B is if you need to verbalize anything to me, just do it. That's music to my ears. That signals to me that you're listening to your body, and I love it.
Mm.
So please give me more opportunities to help, if I can. So that's part of it too. And then the other thing I was going to add, I knew somebody back in the day who had a special practice designed around trauma informed care. And her intake process was really interesting to me. The first session was fully closed, just talking, just trust building. And that was like their consult was like an hour session. And it was maybe priced differently. I can't remember that part of it, but it was um, to just create some interpersonal rapport and safety before the first, what you might call the first real appointment.
Mhm. Mhm.
But giving some consideration, I thought that was such a beautiful process to
Mhm.
actually create the service, not just like, oh, we'll just buffer more time for the intake. The entire first session, that's building that foundation of safety in that therapist client relationship.
Yeah, I do a clothed massage on the floor, and I have several clients. I have no idea what their story is. I don't need to know, which is a whole thing. But they will never get undressed, and that's okay. And
Mhm.
I think that's something I want to reiterate too, is that you do not have to understand what happened to somebody. Like, in fact, it's not really yours to know.
Yeah, it's not really our business. That's right. If
Right.
you want to share, that's a privilege to offer them the opportunity to share because maybe that's their therapy is
Processing and yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's something that people mistake until they really study trauma work, right? Is that they need to know, is this like physical trauma or sexual trauma or whatever? And
Yeah.
it's like actually when you really look at like the definition of trauma, we're all kind of carrying some of it. Like I
Oh,
haven't met a person who hasn't experienced trauma. Maybe they're out there,
yeah.
but I haven't met them. So
No, I think it's part of being human and the
yeah,
human in a
yeah,
world built by humans.
absolutely.
And maybe we should start with just like, what is our foundational definition of trauma for anyone wondering?
What would you say it is?
It's not what happens to you, it's
It's
or
a
what happened to you or didn't happen to you, it's your understanding and what that means to you. And basically it's a disempowerment of the individual. So quite often the healing is a reconnection of the individual, and it's not you connecting with the individual, it's them connecting with parts of themselves. Um, but as providers, we can help hold the space so that they can process it and work it out and feel safe and da da da.
Hello, friend. If today's conversation is resonating with you, I'd love to invite you deeper into the Woven community. When you join Patreon, you're helping sustain the quiet labor of community care, supporting the life and work of a body worker and tender of soft spaces. Even small contributions ripple outward and make this work possible. You can also follow along on Instagram and TikTok for somatic practices, reflections, and ways to stay rooted in your own soft edges. All the links are in the show notes. Now, back to the episode. Something I tell my kids, as they like travel through life, they'll be like, so and so did this thing to me. And I'll say, be very careful what you tell yourself about what happened. because that's what you're referring to, right? Is that
Uh,
something happens, but how are we absorbing it? How are we internalizing it? What are we telling ourselves about it? And obviously, that is not to negate the things that happen to people that are outside of their control. Obviously, you can't like think yourself out of, a horrific car accident or, all those other bad things that could happen to a person. That's not to minimize any of that. Absolutely not. And I think that you know, being very careful about how we integrate things, big life
yes.
events, small life events. Like you were talking about with the person who is experiencing grief and mourning from the flood, it's like there's a time period after something happens where anything goes, right? Like cry, kick, scream, all those things. And then there becomes a time where it's like, okay, and how are we integrating this experience that happened?
Yeah, it's storytelling, isn't it?
Mhm.
And there's a lot of power in story, and there's a lot of opportunity for self-work in deconstructing stories that we've been telling ourselves for a long time. By the way, Sarah, I had the biggest smile on my face when you mentioned your mothering, how you're teaching this to your kids. That just makes my heart so happy when I hear you intentionally, beautifully parenting like that.
And I'll be really honest, my kids
Amazing.
are really annoyed by me saying they're
I'm
always like
sure.
they're always like, "What does that even mean, mom?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, you know,
Right,
but
right.
I do want to believe that when they're
Keep
older,
saying it. They'll, yeah.
yeah, they will reach back into that. I remember
Yes.
when my mom said that thing.
Yeah. You'll have your boomerang moment when finally they're like, they get it. And then, yeah. Uh, and that's the good work too. Just keep putting that out and detaching from the outcome, right? Ooh,
Absolutely. And here's the other thing I want to say. There's a lot of spaces of trauma work that's being done poorly, right? Like I see it all the time. There's a
yeah.
lot of trauma work that's really good. But more so than anything, you're going to make a mistake in trauma work, okay? Cuz sometimes I see people or I don't know, teachers, institutions, whatever, claiming trauma informed care and like, they're just so afraid to trigger anyone or activate anyone that they, like, try to make this perfect space, and, like, that's not really trauma-informed care either because we all get activated by anything at any time, Again, I don't need to know what that is. I need to be able to be grounded enough to hold space for someone who is becoming activated for whatever reason. We can't stop living our lives even when we're traumatized. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Makes sense? It's
Yeah.
like we can't be perfect in this way. Like I can't teach you this is the way to speak in order to be calling yourself trauma informed. Like that's not
Yeah, that's not the whole
teachable.
point. So honestly, it's kind of like you can go to dance school and you can learn all of these wonderful techniques and moves and skills and yada, yada, yada. And like this metaphorically, obviously, but like at the end of the day, you just need to get on stage and dance your heart out. And maybe this is a bad metaphor. The equivalent of dancing your heart out is forget all of the technique and just do the most basic, natural thing, which is to sit and hold space with this person who is processing something that, again, you don't need to know the details about it. You just need to know this is a human being having a human experience, and what's going to ultimately help them heal is just having the environment and having a human present to witness, as you said beautifully in a previous episode, just bearing witness. That is healing in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that it's more than holding space and because also what the heck is holding space? That's a whole thing.
And I'm sorry, I got it. That's the foundation. Yes, there's more.
Right.
Like when
Yeah.
in doubt, instead of trying to be perfectionisty and, oh, what do I do? Come
Yes.
back to the chorus of the song, which is, yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that um It's kind of like polyvagal theory is something that a lot of people know about these days, and they're trying to navigate it for themselves and for others. But it's like polyvagal theory is not something that is going to be helpful in the moment of someone being activated. Like, it helps me sometimes. I'll be like, I am in sympathetic flight, or like whatever. I'll try to like
Yeah.
than myself in it or whatever. But what I wouldn't want to do is if a client comes in and something happens, I'll be like, it's okay. You're just in a fight
Yeah.
response at the moment. Like, of course it's not going to work, or it's not going to help. But I think that having this like understanding of how people tend to have a response that is based in something like a groove, like a natural experience, like this is my sort of makeup or setup, like I respond this way usually. um when they feel safe, they can actually maybe respond in a different way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like understanding that is very helpful in the massage space. It's probably outside of our scope of practice to be like educating on that, like necessarily to our clients. I don't know, maybe it's not state by state. But I also think that having that understanding really helps you come from an informed place so that when and if something happens, your space holding is actually like a much more robust experience than just like, because like I've seen people hold space and it looks like,
Oh,
it's
a
like
little
just
too
I'm gonna be
Freudian. Yeah.
quiet. I'm gonna
Yeah.
be quiet and just let them have their process. And sometimes
Yeah. It's not that. Yeah.
it's not
Thank you.
that. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, sometimes it is being quiet and being like, it's okay to cry, or like let the tears out, whatever. But other times it's like, you know what? I got you. I'm here with you.
There's a connection. There's
Right.
a tether. You're
Right.
not part of the backdrop. You're very present.
Yes. Right. I'm
I'm
here.
glad you added that. Yeah. That's
There's a Brene Brown um clip on YouTube about empathy, and she
where
talks,
they go down in the
yes,
cave.
you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. I love that. I also, I always bring things back to parenting because hello,
Mhm.
my life. But last night my daughter was really tired. She was overtired. Wednesday nights are always our like late nights getting home. And it was time to get to bed, and she was like, just no, I'm not gonna do it. And she was throwing a big fit, right? And
Mm,
dad was like, you do this every night, get to bed, da da da, like he became
mm,
bigger, right?
mm,
I got lower, and I
mm.
was like, you really don't want to get your pajamas on, do you? Here's what I want you to do. Push into my hands. I want you to punch my hands and push, push, push. So she was like pushing, pushing, pushing. And within like 45 seconds, she was in my arms, like with her head on my
Oh.
shoulder. And that's nervous system understanding.
Ah, beautiful. That is so beautiful.
Like she's activated. And I'm not saying that's
Yeah.
appropriate in client situations, right? But when you understand that the nervous system response is way more robust than just like crying or raging out or whatever, there's like a
Yeah.
whole experience in that, then we can adjust what we do to provide what someone needs. That's holding space.
Oh, that's so beautifully illustrated, Sarah. And I'm going to be thinking about that. Yeah, it's an energy, it's an emotion, energy in motion, energy motion, emotion that just needs to flow. And with little kids or adults, adults aren't much better at it much of the time, right? I mean, we would think, oh, you're a big human, you have big human skills. Yeah, not so much. You go out in the world and you can spot a dysregulated person from a mile away. And it's just a skill thing. So with little kids especially, or people who are dealing with, again, things that it's outside their bandwidth. They're pushed to capacity, and then the psychological way of looking at it is they're in their child brain. They're in their child mind
Mhm.
versus their adult mature mind, which is the voice that when you're reparenting yourself. Well, that's getting into like the weeds of other stuff, but yeah, there's different parts of ourself that we can talk to. When we're outside of our capacity, we're very often in our child energy or our child mind. And so we don't have a lot of skills or tools when we're in that place and we just want to be held. We're just like little kids that are hurt and just want to be seen and held. But you're a mom with your daughter, you're going to engage, you're going to attune in a way that it's going to look very different between a therapist and client.
Yeah.
But like you said, the flow, the process, what is happening, that's it right there.
So I had a really good pal with this morning reach out to me, and she's in this space where she's like, I've done all this education, I've done all these certificates, and I'm not doing anything with these things, and I'm feeling a lot of waste, and I forget some of the words that she was saying, but like basically she was down on herself because she spent a lot of money on training and she's not utilizing the training.
Mhm.
And I get that, right? Like I've done a lot of trainings all the time. I'm doing something. But what I was reflecting back to her is like all these things are part of who you become when you show up in the world in a certain way, right? So I was like, I know you may not be doing like whatever thing, but you are because it comes out of you in the way that you talk to people, in the way that you understand the way that their bodies are working, right? She's a physical therapist. So
Okay.
she's a body worker too. And so I'm saying this here because it's like when you take a class on trauma informed care, it doesn't mean like this drastic thing happens. Like you're going to totally change your practice. Like,
Yeah.
in a different setting, it would be like, oh, I took a hot stone class. Now I have these stones, these like physical things that I'm going to incorporate into my session. In a trauma informed understanding class, it's not going to be this big shift, right? It's going to be more of this like, oh, I'm showing up in a different way.
Yeah, the way I like to think of it like changing a lens.
Yep,
You're changing
absolutely.
a lens. You're not changing what you're looking at. You're,
Right.
yeah.
And the more experience you have with people like showing up trauma informed, showing up with that lens,
Hmm.
the more you're going to get a different feedback that happens,
Hmm.
you know? Um, I'm trying to decide if I want to go down this rabbit hole or not. I think I'm going to say no. Um,
We also, we might need to do a part two on this
yeah,
or
yeah,
somehow put a pin in it.
yeah. No, we can totally wrap that up. But the point, I think that the most important points here, right, are that trauma informed care is the way that you show up in your session. Good intentions are not enough. You need actual understanding of the way things are working, right? And number two, holding space for people is a lot more involved than just being quiet.
Yeah.
And that the environment you create is so much a part of the process. And I've lost track of my numbers, but also every client is in a vulnerable position, and we need to remember that and also take care with that.
Yes. And my cheat code, just for people who are super duper new to it and they want like tangibles, I'm going to just reiterate that you should um, uh, lower. I'm trying to think of the right word, but basically just downscale all of the stimuli that's auditory, and that could even include music choice. Pick a really like low energy or like just really ambient, but something even less beat, like just something really, really um uh relaxing for the background. Um and even like sliding the stool around or like how you handle a leg, like every little thing, just be tuned in to how much stimuli are you adding to a person's experience, assuming they're already fully maxed out.
Yeah.
And to that point, even if they're like drooling and they're snoring on the table, that doesn't give you a green light to scoot the stool around and start slamming doors and doing things, That shows that, okay, they're trusting you. So keep going with that trust, right? It's working. This is a good thing. So don't mess with that. Keep that intact as much as you can.
Yeah, I love that.
And also, just sorry, last little bit. I keep getting thought bubbles popping up. As the relationship with your client develops over time, right? So, say you've worked with them for 6 months, make sure you stay congruent every time. Sometimes in the non-natal space, it's very easy. I know I've been guilty of this in the past, and it's not necessarily a negative, but maybe it's not as appropriate within a trauma-informed approach to get a little bit more, I don't want to say informal or casual, but to slide on your professional boundaries a little bit. I've seen some therapists operating, and again, I'll include myself, where like somebody's been coming to see you for 6 months or so long, you start to get a little more friendly and chatty with them. Um, I was more guilty of this when I was running Sunflower and we had a general population to serve. Since shifting gears into mama bear massage and the perinatal practice being very trauma informed in the way I approach all of those relationships, less so, far less so. But that's also why I'm adding this in. When clients come to see you, even though across time, like the long arc, you guys might be developing more trust and rapport and all of those good things. The relationship might be getting stronger, right? Visit by visit. Um, but there may be a day when suddenly they've just come from their OB office and they were just hit with some bad news or something. You don't know what's coming up day to day. Or, like you said, Sarah, when something could come up that will activate you. And so your consistency has to really be there, not just during the session, but session to session and like across time as much as possible. That congruency is what's going to anchor that relationship too. So it's not just in that single session, it's anytime you see that person, just try to show up with that same energy, that same style, everything. Just be really congruent.
I love that. Consistency is key. Yeah.
And we're human. I mean, I have certain days when I slept like crap and I might be a little whatever, or there's days when I'm full of really good energy. Maybe I'm in my follicular phase or whatever. I'm just like feeling really good. I have to remind myself when I'm in work mode, that's the mode. I'm putting on that hat. I think I shared again when I put on my black shirt and black tights, it's like, okay, this is the uniform. So however you need to ritualize it to like anchor it, but that's important too.
Yeah. Thanks so much for being here. I love these conversations. We're going to keep them up and yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for listening.
All right. If you liked what you heard today, consider supporting Woven on Patreon. Your support helps sustain the quiet labor of community care, lifting up the life and work of a body worker and tender of soft spaces. Even small acts of generosity make a big impact, nurturing the kind of care and connections that our community needs. Thank you for listening, for sharing, and for being part of this web of support. Until next time, stay soft, stay rooted.